For this video, I'd like to show you how I took this $2 mini and turned it into a great D&D boss with a custom base.
Ta-da!
Hello gamers, Matthew here from Grey Army Gaming in lovely Lund, Sweden. For this video, I would like to show you this project that I've been working on for the last couple of days. Now, I've been in my local secondhand store and I found this great mini here for about $2. If you're playing Warhammer, it might be something like a Terror Geist. Maybe in D&D, it could be something like an undead dragon. But I found it in this condition right here without the base. Now, there's a pretty decent paint job on it, I thought. I mean, it's got some dark wash on the bone to make it look kind of dirty. There's some greens and some dark greens, and there's some purples in here and some grays. I mean, it looked just fine. I thought this looks just like any painted D&D mini. But unfortunately, it only stood on these two legs on the bottom here, so it wasn't very stable. So I knew I'd have to make a base for it. So I thought to myself, why not go ahead and make a really cool custom base? I'm going to show you the process now that I've gone through in making this base and getting this final product. So as with all my D&D mini projects, it all begins by creating a round black base out of plastic. Now I find these things by going to binders or folders. They oftentimes have this really nice black plastic. It's about, maybe 2 millimeters thick. And it's pretty easy to cut with the scissors, and then you can use some sandpaper to round it off and to make it look really good. So this is what I started with, and I got it to just the right size so that I could fit these feet on here. The next step then was to go ahead and add these stones. Now these stones are actually not stones. It's some wood chips that I found in a local park. And what I did was I went and added some glue to them so that to make them a little bit stronger, and then added some black primer on them and went back and added a couple layers of dry brushing, starting out with some dark grays, moving into lighter grays, and eventually ending up with whites. And you can see it has a really good effect. I mean, this does really look like stones, but the benefit of having the wood chipping is it's a lot lighter. So when I was done with that, I went ahead and glued those down with a hot glue gun. And then the next step was to go back and add smaller stones here with some super glue to give it a little more texture, to make it look a little more like a field that has some stones randomly strewn about. And then when I was all done with that, I just went and added a whole layer of sand. Covered this whole base here with white glue, added sand to it. Let all of that dry, and then I went back and begun to do some dry brushing. I don't know if you can see it very well here, but there's many different textures and colors in here. We've got some browns, some reds, and then I ended up with some grays and whites. I was trying to give it a nice uneven look all over the place. I hit the small stones up with grays and whites to make them sort of consistent to look like they fit in with these other stones here. And when that was all finished up, I went ahead and then added some different clumps here of grass. And I stayed consistent with these kind of yellowish clumps. I didn't want to add any green because I wanted this to look more like a desert kind of terrain piece. So I've got clumps in all the places that you typically would find clump foliage, grass tufts growing out in the edges along the rocks. Really nice way to fill those out. I probably used about 15 of them here, but you can't really tell. They don't look like it's too many because it's quite a big piece. And as a final step, we go ahead and just add a layer of paint on the edge here to make any of the dry brushing paint that I might have slipped over onto the sides disappear, just to give it that sharp black edge. But all in all, I think this piece is pretty much finished. I don't think I need to actually add any more paint to the actual figurine itself. I like it how it is, and to be honest, it looks a lot better than a lot of the pre-painted models that you get from WizKids or anything else you get for Dungeons and Dragons. So this model, I would say, is finished and complete as it is. And here's just a quick shot of how it looks with other normal size humanoid models to give you a sense of the scale. So this is going to be a really good boss for D&D, and I'm going to save this to surprise my players with perhaps later on in our campaign. And there is, of course, absolutely no reason that you couldn't also use this in Warhammer or Age of Sigmar. Like I said, it reminds me a lot of a Terror Geist. You could use it with your undead armies as well. Well, there you have it, folks. A quick look at the process for how I made this great D&D Boss or Warhammer Terror Geist. And the great thing about this, as I said before, is that it doesn't take a whole lot of time. You don't have to be incredibly skilled as a crafter or as a painter to make it work. And the best thing of all is that it is incredibly cheap. The figurine, maybe $2 and maybe $1 for the extra supplies, the paint. Everything else you can find around you in nature, wood chips, sand, rocks. Pretty affordable piece here. For about $3, you can have yourself a great D&D boss. Well, thank you for joining us here for this video at Grey Army Gaming for the future of fantasy.